Welcome back, everybody. My name is Grace, or Gibby, whatever you prefer, and today I'm back with another Yulgar only video guide, and we're going to be taking on the boss of the Chessmaster Saga's recent quest, Prime Conduit. Well, I say recent, it's been a bit, but Prime Conduit, which is found in the Chessmaster Saga in the Season of Consequences hub in the Checkmate War. Now, there's a boss and there's a boss gauntlet. The boss gauntlet only has a pretty niche spell, pretty bad spell, honestly. So I don't recommend that. But I wanted to do the normal boss because that unlocks the Kaisa weapon, which is a energy sword for melee and magic, which can toggle to do harm and prismatic burn. So it's quite strong. Now, with all that being said, um, I want to go through the boss mechanics and then go through the 4 kill methods that I did. So I did one with a warrior build, one with a ranger build, one with a mage build, and one using retro golden armor and Undeadify. So I'm going to go through the major boss mechanics and then I'm going to go through each method's specifics. Currently what you're watching is my warrior playthrough, and that's just going in the background. If you're a warrior and you want to see some specifics, after I finish this voiceover, just skip back to the beginning and let it play. So the boss has a lot of mechanics, but the main one is that it swaps its element that it attacks with, and it also has a backlash, which attacks with different elements, depending on how much damage you do. And the elements always swap when the monster does its special attack, and once they swap to void when the monster enters phase 2. But that's only a one-time thing for the fight. So, the element swap is pretty dangerous. It means that you need to be paying attention to the monster's character page when it says it's a pop-up. It's something like the monster changes to a new unstable element. And if you look at the character page, it says it's attacking with X element, like fire, and backlashing with X element, like energy, for example. And that's always random. You can't predict it except by looking. And so, after it does its SP attack, which is a nuke, it'll switch back to its standard attack with a new element. So to beat this boss, you need gear to defend against all 8 elements. That's the easiest way to do it. Now I also recommend using defensive miscs if you have them. With my gear restrictions of using accessible items, I only had the Hair Muffs misc and the Liquid Courage misc for energy and dark, but if you have other defensive miscs which cut damage in half, what I recommend is using your correct armor for its attacks. So if it's attacking with ice but backlashing with earth, you might want to use your ice armor and ice shield, but use an earth defensive misc, and that'll cut down your damage intake by a lot. So that's pretty much how you can get around the random element damage for both backlash and normal attacks. The other mechanics that we can get into with this boss are a little more complicated. So, also, let me talk about the rolls for the backlash. The backlash is its dexterity versus your endurance. So if you train endurance, you'll have a much easier time. The other mechanics it has that are pretty significant are an item lockout and a defense boost. Now, the item lockout happens in the first half of the fight before it hits half HP. And basically, what it does is it locks one of your inventory slots for a couple turns, like your weapons or your shield or your pets, for example. I don't believe it locks armors, but it can also lock you out of attacking, which, if you're just a straight up warrior or ranger, could cause some problems. The backlash is versus your endurance, so high endurance will help. And the item lock is versus your dexterity, so high dexterity will help. Now, if you get through the item lock and you get it to half HP, 2 things will start to happen. 1, the boss will slowly start gaining defense. I think it gains 5 every time it does a special attack, or there's a chance every time it does a special attack of gaining 5 permanently. And also, it will start healing based off the damage dealt. So if you take a lot of damage, the boss will heal a lot of damage. If you use a strategy to mitigate damage, like say a barrier or a mana shield, you'll take less damage, and it'll heal less damage. The defense boost is only really a problem if you let it stack on for a very long time. But if you do have a long fight, like I did with my warrior playthrough, that can become a problem. So, there's a couple other things. In the second half of the fight, the boss doesn't have freedom, but it does slightly more damage. But if you stun it, you get some resources back. So it's effective to stun it for your resource regeneration. I wouldn't recommend it because stunning is even a little bit inconsistent. But feel free to try it out if you have werepire, or not werepire, sorry, vampire or werewolf. You can try the fear or the control. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the boss's mechanics. Let me double check my notes and see if I missed anything. Okay, so there is one thing I forgot to mention, which is that while the boss lifesteals, it only lifesteals to a certain point. It can't lifesteal itself back up from half HP, and I don't think it can lifesteal itself back up from a quarter HP. So if you get it past those thresholds, it won't heal up extra. But that is pretty much it for the mechanics. So now I'll go into the specific methods. And for all three methods, I played it pretty simply, just with my very limited gear from the Yulgar and Battlon shops and Neko shops. But if you have better armors with skills or with damage sources or better weapons, definitely use them, as they'll make the method a lot easier. Don't take my gear item for item. Just use yours that is similar and strong or equally as strong to make it faster. So, for the warrior method, it was pretty simple. I just attacked him down in whatever armor and shield I had that was of his element, and I used a pet and guest to help boost my damage since I had dexterity. Now what I did do was I used the Kurgween bow pet for most of the fight because the boss heals based off damage dealt, and the Kurgween bow pet gives you an Ellie shield, so you take less damage. So it was effective to stop his regeneration, because that was sort of my bottleneck in this fight, his regeneration speed. Also, you'll notice that I actually ended the fight with an ally assist. That was because I got a little unlucky throughout the fight, or at least I felt like I did, and I just couldn't kill him. I wasn't able to use my armor skill for Tyrannosaurus because the elements never lined up, which I was hoping to use to nuke him down a little bit. So I ended up having a really slow fight, and he ramped up a lot of defense until I could barely hit him. So I just used an ally assist, since those are auto hit, to finish him off. But aside from that, just use a damage boosting misc or a defensive misc of the element if you have it, and you should just be able to attack him down with ease. So that's pretty much the warrior method. Let me know some easy optimizations you could make are using things like H-Series, Tyrannosaurus Rex, even the Master Fighter armor or the Eternal Champion Spirit armor. Those have good melee skills. Any of those would work well. to explain the Ranger method. So, when I was a Ranger build taking on this boss, what I did was I conserved my SP and just slowly damaged him down until he got to half HP, because he doesn't start healing until he gets to half HP. Once he got to half HP, I used the correct element armors, as I had been the whole time, and just random weapons. I think I used the same crossbow for almost the whole fight. Yeah, looks like I did. But once he hit half HP, I also brought out my guest, which did lower how well I could maintain my SP, but I needed that extra DPS to get him through his healing. Aside from that, the boss was pretty easy. I had both dexterity and endurance, so I wasn't taking too much damage from the backlash, and I wasn't locked out of my items very often. Optimizations, I would say there are lots of great ranger armors. You could even use something like Horosho because it has a ranged skill with high elecomp. You could use something like Torontosaurus. Again, H-Series' energy skill with the rockets. That would be good too. And it's great because if the boss is doing energy damage, its energy resistance doesn't change. It still takes full damage. Normally, if you use H-Series against an energy boss, you'll do low damage. But since this boss switches elements, you'll still end up doing high damage. So it's quite good. You could really use anything to speed up the kill. I just used the most bare bones gear. And again, I used the Kirkweenbow pet to reduce the damage. Basically, instead of using Fairy Godmother for healing, I just reduced the damage that I took. They're both about the same, but when it's life stealing, it's good to reduce the damage. Now, that was pretty much it for the Ranger method. Tons of ways you could improve on it, but that was what I did. So now I'm going to explain the Mage Method. For the Mage Method, I used a pretty similar strategy of just switching elements and armors and miscs as needed, and I saved my mana. Like a ranger, I saved my SP, but for the mage, I saved my mana until it hit half HP, and then I started using spells to nuke it down, because I didn't want it to heal past its phases. So there's a ton of optimizations you could make. Using a spellcaster lean armor would greatly boost your nuking potential. And I just used a random spell from Yulgar's shop, which is multi-element. You could use your best spell because all the element resists are the same. Something like Destruction Burst or a multi-hit spell like Frigid Fury, or even Lore Master Tome's The Ugly. The Twilly spell has tons of hits. Pretty much anything would work very well. And again, using a spellcaster lean, using an int boost of some kind would greatly increase your damage. I just didn't have access to those because of my gear restrictions to make the guide more accessible. I used mana potions to heal my mana. You could use Essence of Carnage, you could use a pet, you could use a draw mana from your tome, although that would be much slower. Or you could use something like Infinita Staff if you have it. Lots of good options. I just chose to use potions because they're the simplest. Nothing too complicated in this run. Just attack it slowly until it's half HP, and then use your spells to nuke it down. Or you could just nuke it from 100 to 0 with your spells. I was just doing this to play more defensively and be more careful with my resources. explain the retro golden method. So the retro golden method works for pretty much any build. The main thing is using the retro golden armor. What you're able to do is make it so all its attacks and backlash hit your appropriate resist. Because the shield, if you use Zorbac's Undeadify ally assist, the shield makes it so everything attacks your light resists. And so doing that, the boss was doing minimal damage with both its attacks and backlash the whole time. So I had a very easy time managing my damage output, or my damage output versus my damage input. You can do this with any build, with spellcasting, with attacks, with bows, whatever. I used bows because I just happen to have my build like that. But Retro Golden is essentially a great way to cheese the boss if you are struggling to beat it with traditional methods, because it makes all of the backlash and normal attacks hit the same armor the whole time. So you can just sit back and play with your one armor. That's pretty much it. If you're really struggling with the Retro Golden method, you could also use Arctic's Ally Assists once it gets below half HP or once it gets low HP, because those do void damage against undead, and you've turned him undead with the Zorbac Ally Assist. So that's pretty much it for this video. I'm just going to cut it out here and play some music as I've been doing over each clip. I hope you enjoyed. I hope this was very informative and helpful. Let me know if you have any questions or optimizations you think I should use or other people should use. And let me know if you have ideas for more quests I should showcase. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you've had a great day, and spread some love and positivity to the people around you. Peace and love, everybody. I'll see you in the next one.